My journey away from home, fear, flight, and fate. My name is Huan. I'm a Chinese woman from the province of Fujian, and while you might be surprised by how well I speak English, I didn't learn it in school, and I don't even take extra language classes. The situation is more complicated than that, and I'll explain why. In case you weren't aware, our nation has strict criminal laws. For instance, theft is one type of theft. But stealing manholes? Yes, the ones that are in the middle of the road? Now they are punishable by death. We also have the idea of the death penalty. This is why the law was established in the first place. At one point, people used to steal these manholes in large quantities and sell them for metal to make money. However, the worst part of the theft was not the theft itself, but the consequences. I knew a girl by the name of Lily who came from a good family and was an excellent student. One day, she was driving to visit her grandmother and got into an accident when she ran into a spot where there should have been a manhole, but there wasn't one. She hit a pedestrian and both of them were rendered disabled. This incident served as the inspiration for the new laws because there were numerous similar incidents and many lives were lost. Therefore, our leadership came to the conclusion that impeachment would only serve to deter those who seek to profit at the expense of the lives of innocent people. As for me, I am an upright citizen of my country. I did not break the law, and my compliance with the law had nothing to do with my fear, but rather my upbringing. My father married my stepmother when I was just 2 years old, and my mother left us and fled. No one tried to deceive me. I understood the truth immediately. My stepmother was a judge in our area, so perhaps that explains why she acted in such a frigid manner. She didn't ask me to call her mama. Instead, I called her Muchin, which is simply translated as mother. She didn't have any children of her own, which I forgot to mention. They won't admit it to me, but she made good progress up the corporate ladder. While she was imprisoning criminals and acquitting innocent people, my dad assumed the role of the housewife. I'm not saying anything. He's a great cook. He cleans and he does the laundry. But, as a father, he didn't come out, and as a mother, he didn't either. Now, if you thought there was no such thing as orphans living with parents, I'll tell you one thing. There are some ridiculous situations. Numerous severe downpours occurred. When I was hurrying home from school to avoid getting even more soaked, my friend's grandmother called. Remember, Grandma used to cry when I used to talk to her, and after she passed away, she continued to cry. And I had just bought her an asthma inhaler. I wanted to drop it off, but I was so afraid that I had no idea what to do. My phone slid out of my hands when I stopped in the middle of the road. I don't know how I mustered the power, but I was so furious at those hatches that I took up one of the covers and hurled it to the side. When I discovered there were surveillance cameras in front of me a few minutes later, the lid hit some kind of opening and it immediately vanished under the water. My initial reaction was that I might be put to death for this. As soon as my phone rang again, I trembled because it was my father. He wanted to pick me up in his car, but I refused, saying that I was already close to home because I was afraid that if they found me, the judge would punish me. So, out of desperation, I ran to Gwen's house, gave my mother one last hug, then gave myself a hug before deciding to take the subway somewhere else in the city. I boarded a train that was leaving, and after passing a few stations, it abruptly came to a stop. The passengers couldn't figure out why, but it didn't take long for the driver to explain. Flooding! Flooding! His eyes said it all. We couldn't go any further because the tunnel was flooded. The rain was also too heavy, and it wouldn't stop. I reasoned that if I died here, it would be better than at the hands of some munchkin. We climbed up as far as we could only hope as we tried to break the windows, but it didn't work. Others tried after me, but it didn't work either. Help was coming, but we realized there was another problem. The oxygen was running out. Old people, children, women, and men with me. The children were placed on the shoulders of the men, and water quickly filled the wagon. When the water eventually inundated the windows and nearly reached the top, I could hardly keep my head above water. And then there was such an eerie, unsettling calm. Someone said, "Hello, Mom. I'm going to die. I love you. Goodbye." And a tear started to fall down my cheek. I don't even know who my mother is. I was one of the children and teenagers pulled out first, and the first thing I noticed was that I was breathing. The water was coming in faster and faster until we heard a noise on the roof. Rescue workers had arrived. They had cut a hole in the ceiling and were pulling us out one at a time. My phone was sinking in the water and wasn't working. Not yet time to die, I was placed in an international organization's helicopter with the other kids. At that time, I had no idea how much my life would change as a result of that hatch cover. I received first aid, and despite being cold from standing in the water for 2.5 hours, I was otherwise unharmed. I also had a young child with me who was about 4 years old. She was sobbing a lot without her mother, but I tried to comfort her, and then she began choking. The doctors, who didn't understand what was wrong and wanted to, put an oxygen mask on her. I pulled out one inhaler from my purse and gave it a few sprays in her mouth because I understood what the wheezing was, and the girl began breathing normally after that. "I'm Sam, and I work here." She greeted me in poor Chinese, but I smiled and made the decision right then and there to assist her for the following 24 hours. I actively assisted in the children's rescue. Sam questioned how I was able to do it, but my dad, who brought me to first aid and emergency behavior sessions, credits me with my good training. I had to pretend that I was an orphan because the death penalty made me feel more fearful than living on the streets. Without hesitation, Gwen offered me a position with her company, and I accepted. I accompanied her to the nearest country, Laos. My new life in Laos was good, but I missed my father. There were times when I was ill or had wage delays, and Sam helped me out. However, one day she left to work at a head office abroad, and I found it difficult to manage on my own. That's when I became seriously ill. You see, a virus in my body was rapidly destroying me. I discovered clean water bottles and an oxygen concentrator in my room when I woke up thirsty, along with Chinese cuisine and medicine for my family. I didn't know where they came from because I assumed Sam had taken care of it. I found food, medicine, and money sent to my door throughout the 4 weeks it took me to get well, which made me even more eager to return home. When Sam arrived, she declared that those packages were not at all from her. She invited me to a press conference in the city where nearly all of our employees attended. There was good food, lots of familiar faces, experts, and volunteers there, and everything was cool. But then, to my horror, I spotted a familiar face. Mushin looked just as stiff, but she had a glove on her left hand. I tried to avoid her, but she found me. She said, "Let's go home." "No, I'm not coming with you." She said, "Let's go home." "No, I'm not coming with you. I'm sorry." I tried to leave, but the guards grabbed me. They gave me an injection, and I passed out. I didn't wake up until we got to the house. "You can't decide my fate. You're a cold monster. Have you even asked me what I want? Why are you in charge of my life when you have never been my mother and never will be? You'll put me to death. I don't want it. And you're right. The hatch you tore out was nowhere to be seen. You left after I gave you a chance to come to your senses, thinking that your father and I didn't know where you were, eating the food he cooked and drinking the medicine we bought you. However, how did you find me? You seem to have forgotten about my ties. What would you not do to put me to death? I didn't give birth to you, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. I just don't always show it." She didn't say anything. She just took the glove off her hand and asked, "What is this prosthesis?" I gave my hand as punishment for my daughter being a criminal, but officially, you're dead. So I only got off with that and also lost my job. I couldn't believe it. After many years, Mushin held me again as I begged for her forgiveness, and she said, "Let's go home. Teddy missed you." Did you like my story? If so, please let me know in the comments section below the video, and don't forget to like it, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with your friends.